Imagine an ideology that has become so convinced of its moral superiority, so sure that the way it understands and interprets is correct, and so resolute in its convictions of breaking the wheel because of its self-perceived attainment of perfection, that anyone who would seek to question it is not merely seen as wrong, but an enemy that needs to be destroyed. Daenerys Targaryen personifies this in Game of Thrones. The agenda of leftist ideology and the agenda of Daenerys Targaryen are the same agenda. The latest notable casualty found in the crosshairs of this ideology was Charlie Kirk. Much like another prominent character in Game of Thrones, Lord Varys, Charlie Kirk too put the people first, sought dialogue rather than violence, and like Varys, was labeled an enemy and murdered. What do you do when concepts like reason, logic, reality, and truth become open to interpretation? What happens when subjectivity becomes a moral dictator and objectivity its immoral slave? When you put a crown on a victim, the subjects are always the oppressors. Charlie Kirk once said, leftist ideology is a toxic blend of Marxism, Fascism, and Post-Modernism. Daenerys Targaryen is its perfect avatar. She starts with a noble goal, something many people will support because it resonates with them. Her goal was to break the wheel of Westeros' feudal oppression, a parallel to leftists vowing to dismantle systemic racism or inequality. The irony of this is the methods used to achieve the notable goal are the same methods that increase the issues the noble goal was meant to resolve. Daenerys, like leftist ideology, has decided on its methods, violence and control. She frees slaves in Meereen, but her rule sparks insurgency via the Sons of the Harpy. Her foreign armies, the Unsullied and Dothraki, flood Westeros, ignoring its culture, sparking fear and chaos. This shares a striking resemblance to what we see in the West right this moment. Look at Europe. Sweden's 2015 open borders let in 163,000 migrants, leading to 86 segregated vulnerable areas and 296 shootings in 2024, with 60 to 70% of suspects foreign-born. In the US, leftist-led defund police policies from 2020 to 2022 spiked homicides by 7%. Globally, 918,925 irregular migrant entries to the EU in 2024 strained cities, fueled crime, and left locals frustrated and resentful. The utopian vision in the mind of the leftist ideology and the real-world methods it uses to achieve that vision of utopia diametrically oppose each other. The leftist ideology fails to take into account that not everyone wants the world it wants. This is especially true the way it goes about causing utopia through dystopian means. It also fails to take into account the incompatibilities of different cultures with each other. It fails to understand most cultures outside the West are staunch nationalist. They have fierce patriotism and will seek to make whatever culture they find themselves in subservient to their own by any means necessary. This therefore goes to show leftist ideology is the first domestic terrorist of its own culture. In fact, the Western culture is not, and never has been, the culture of leftist ideology. Similarly, Daenerys Targaryen, although born in Westeros, despised and loathed everything about it. Leftist ideology has been the first to fail to assimilate, the first to disregard the social norms, and the first to victimize itself within the culture, and therefore conclude its culture is its oppressor. Like Daenerys, it has allied itself and supports causes that desire the destruction of Western culture, while justifying the destruction as a rebirth. Lord Varys in Game of Thrones lived for one thing: the people and defending them. Charlie Kirk wanted to be remembered for standing for his faith, Christianity. Both placed the importance of people above allegiance to a political party. Charlie Kirk was a voice for America's forgotten, rallying 3,000 strong crowds against leftist policies like open borders and woke culture. His message resonated beyond the borders of America because leftist ideology has infected many other countries, and its repercussions are becoming more and more oppressively apparent. Both Varys and Kirk paid the ultimate price for questioning leftist ideology's totalitarian utopia narrative. They were both deemed as a voice of hatred and oppression, and therefore must be silenced. They were both seen as dangerous because both sought to expose the truth. Varys, with the illegitimacy of Daenerys' claim to the Iron Throne, and Kirk, with the leftist ideologies always the victim but actually ultimate oppressor. Daenerys burnt Varys alive for questioning her, labeling him a traitor. Kirk was shot by a 22-year-old sniper, Tyler Robinson, who called his view hatred on immigration, trans issues, and race. Both were silenced. The ones that aren't silent: leftist social media, cowards celebrating in the safety of their living rooms and poorly lit bedrooms, overjoyed that their miserable lives have experienced some distorted form of joy. The braver cowards desecrating memorials, disrupting remembrance ceremonies, and selling t-shirts. The claim would be made by the so-called intelligent, reasoned, level-headed individuals among us: oh, these people doing this are the small fringe. These are the extremists. No one really agrees with them. These intellectuals and experts are like the maesters in Old Town, who scoff and strawman Samuel Tarley's concerns of the impending doom of another hostile, illegal immigrant force, the Night King and his army of the dead. More on this in a moment. The maesters and intellectuals, due to their detachment from society, for so long have convinced themselves the concerns of the ordinary folks are hyperbolic and overly dramatic, and the things they are experiencing are merely a figment of their own imaginations. The clever people, who are bound to their own imaginations, have convinced themselves that the present hasn't changed from the past, and society has gotten over things in the past, so society will get through the present. They fail to realize just because their own world has been unaffected by what is happening does not mean that the other people's worlds haven't. We defer to our maesters because they are our mental escape from all the bad things out in the real world. The problem with this is the leftist ideology, and it fulfilling its agenda is dependent on us doing exactly that, on pretending it will be all right, on convincing ourselves the monsters aren't real, on justifying, oh, people that do bad things must have had a reason, on seeking vengeance because vengeance belongs to the Lord. All the while, we keep trying to convince ourselves and this gnawing uneasiness within ourselves with, it'll be okay. It will be okay. Vengeance and justice are not the same. Settling disputes by judgment is a biblical mandate and a requirement for believers to walk in and exercise. And cowardice is also a sin that could have eternal repercussions. Daenerys' chaos didn't stop with Varys. Her foreign enemies Unsullied and Dothraki flooded Westeros, ignoring its culture, sparking fear and unrest. Leftist ideology does the same globally, but they have failed to take seriously a foe they have welcomed into the West with open arms, an enemy that has plagued Christianity for over a millennia, and an adversary that only true Christianity can withstand and overcome. This is Prophet Muhammad, the Night King, and his army of Islam. Leftist ideology's arrogance in thinking it can ally itself with a far stronger, more diabolical ideology, namely Islam, is beyond reckless. Let us assume the Unsullied and Dothraki are other cultural migrants that have come illegally into the West. Islam is another thing entirely. And unfortunately, it is not in some small rural village or in some underground tunnel in Syria or Gaza anymore. It is walking the streets of Europe, spreading its message at Speaker's Corner, having an ice bath in Sweden, grooming Western girls in Rotherham, getting King Charles to say the Shahada, and making itself out to be the biggest, most oppressed victim in the entire world, and most in need of your support, all the while waiting, calculating. Leftist ideology doesn't know history because it thinks the world began the day it was born. Yet your average leftist believes in evolution. Leftist ideology doesn't know that Syria, Egypt, Armenia, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, Anatolia, or modern-day Turkey, and Palestine, whatever that is, were all Christian countries before the Night King Muhammad and his army of the dead came in and slaughtered and oppressed the Christians, and through violent subjugation conquered those lands. The armies of Westeros, the Crusaders, sought to defend those Christian lands, liberate the people, and claim them back from their oppressors. But that history involves pious Christians, knights and monks doing noble manly things, so best we fabricate that so we can convince people that the Night King is our friend, says every leftist historian and expert. Leftist ideology fails to take into account what I said earlier. Other countries outside the West are staunch nationalist. In conjunction to this, Islam's mandate per the Quran is world domination through violent conquest, and no amount of Western sophistication and compassion will change that. You might say, but not all Muslims are terrorists. To which I will say, a bad Muslim is a decent person, and a good Muslim is a terrorist. Daenerys saw herself as good, her enemies as evil. Varys had to die for the greater good. Leftist ideology does the same. Kirk's assassination proves it. Left and right are pseudo-names for a battle that has been carrying on longer than you or I. A war that atheism, thanks to the Enlightenment, has put its fingers in its ears to for over 300 years. The battle of good and evil. Modernity has rejected God, pushed him out of school, government, and society at large. Jesus Christ has become a figure to be mocked in movies, music, and TV series. The leftist ideology's fascination and embodiment of all that the Bible calls abhorrent and profane is evidence to verses such as, "Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil." Leftist ideology gets unhinged and takes to the streets, burning cars, breaking storefronts, and stealing every time BLM or the pro-Palestine brigade gets a bee in their lunatic bonnet, or when Greta Thunberg falls out her boat. Compared to the normal approach by normal people when something bad happens, Charlie Kirk's assassination. No riots, no looting, nothing. Peaceful, solemn, respectful, godly. Make no mistake, just war theory was created by St. Augustine and refined by St. Thomas Aquinas. And Christ did tell his disciples in Luke 22 to buy a sword, and there are many instances where Jesus did respond with force when circumstances went beyond diplomacy. So to my fellow brothers and sisters, let us not look at the angry speck in my eye when you have a spineless beam in yours. So perhaps I'm like Jon Snow, trying to convince you that the White Walkers are real. Perhaps you have seen them yourself and agree. My intention is to hopefully wake you up and to get you to recognize this isn't a game. The things we decide to do matter. The ideologies we hold to have real, eternal consequences. And to do your homework regarding what so-called victim cause you choose to support. And to the haters, remember, submit to God and resist the devil. If you submit to the devil and resist God, I am duty bound to resist you.